Thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah. Okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. So I'm Kirsten, and I get to work here at Plaid in the Content Studio, and I'm super excited to teach this class for Michael's. So what we do for anyone that is joining us is in about an hour, we teach you guys to complete all of the techniques and leave with a beautiful painting. So tonight we're doing something a little different. Is we're using two different types of paint, but we're going to create this beautiful plant in this textured pot. We're going to do some fun texture to create that pop of color with the wallpaper. So just a really fun painting for this evening. I know Carrie said, if you guys have any questions, technical or product, put that question in the chat. We also have Steven here in the studio, and he will be relaying any information that you might need from me. He'll be answering questions about product, anything that you guys need so that your class is perfect. Okay, so with that said, I am going to go over the supplies that we need. And I always tell everybody, I'm going to teach this painting, but if you want to kind of change it up and make it your own, absolutely do that. If you don't want to maybe do the wallpaper, or maybe you want your blue tabletop to be bright pink, whatever you want to do to make it your own, feel free to do that. But we are going to reproduce this in about an hour. All right, so the first thing I want to do is show you guys the supplies that we need. So first and mostly, we are using FolkArt matte acrylic. And the palette that I'm using is a navy blue. Then I have wicker white and also linen. You can use one or the other, but I'm going to use both. Then we're going to have Thicket, which is the dark green for our plant. Then we are going to have cinnamon, which is kind of this really pretty dark terracotta. And then for our wallpaper, bright pink. So those are FolkArt matte acrylics. And then to be a little bit creative and do something that we haven't done before, we are introducing FolkArt terracotta. And the reason we did this is just texture is so popular. And I hope you guys can see it on your screens. But we just wanted to add a lot of texture to this painting. The pot is textured, a lot of the highlights are textured, a lot of texture in the leaves, and that is done with FolkArt terracotta. And I'm using 3 colors of that. We've got Dusty Trail, Shale Green, and Cavern Moss. All right, so then we also have my favorite brush set available at Michael's. And it is a Craft Smart multi-surface brush set. But what I always tell people is, if you don't have the brush set, you kind of want a small, a medium, and a large brush. One will be doing a base coat. One will need for some details in the wallpaper. And then a thinner one for the details on the leaves. Doesn't have to be the exact size, but the Craft Smart brush set is what we're using. We also, tonight, to create our texture, we need a palette knife. And Michael's has a great assortment of palette knives. Whether yours is plastic or metal, they all work the same. So then make sure that you have the basics, some paper towels, a palette, whether it's a foam plate or a ceramic plate, and then also water for your brushes. And then I'm going to be using, you can use a pencil. I prefer a chalk stick we're not going to use a pattern, or we did not provide a pattern, but we're going to create a pattern. You can have a pencil, but I prefer a chalk stick. So any color that you've got laying around is perfect. And then, like I said, we teach this class in about an hour. So you will need a blow dryer, and that's just to accelerate the dry time before we get started. So you have this painting completed. All right. So with that said, I think I'm going to get started. All right. Oh, and a canvas. So I'm working on a 12 by 12. If yours is bigger, smaller, taller, the techniques is exactly the same. So whatever size canvas you're using, it will be perfect. All right. So the first thing that we are going to do, which is kind of fun, and I love to paint on a dark surface. It just changes up the whole look of the painting. You can see that terracotta color that we're going to base coat is coming through the leaves. It's coming through the wallpaper. That is just something really fun and unique that you can do when you're painting on a dark color. So using that FolkArt matte, the cinnamon color, just apply a solid, even coat to your entire canvas. The canvases that I'm using, Michael's has every size imaginable, but they all have a really nice no stapled side. And what I always tell people after the class, if you do not want to add a frame, do to the side what you did to the top. So you'll go back and paint this terracotta. You'll paint, if there's blue on the bottom, you'll paint blue around the wrapped edge, but we won't do that in the 1 hour class. Don't worry about your base coat being perfect. You just want a really good even coat. A little bit more. All right, you can see it's pretty solid coverage. FolkArt matte acrylic has great coverage, but it's not perfect. Do not worry about doing a second coat. You just want the color, one coat, pretty even as your base coat. So now I'm going to hit this with the blow dryer because you want to work on a dry base coat. Okay, I think that is totally dry. That's one of the fabulous things about working with acrylic is it dries so quick. So it lets you do so many fun techniques. Okay, any questions? Everyone's got their canvas base coated. So I didn't provide a pattern. And the main reason why I don't like to provide a pattern is because then I think you don't learn as many techniques because you're just kind of following it like a coloring book. So we are going to create our pattern. Again, I'm using a chalk stick. And what I like to kind of tell people is view each element as a shape that is easy, easy to recognize. Like these leaves are hearts with, kind of a long point. All of them are different shaped hearts facing different directions. The pot is a really simple shape. If you want yours more rounded, if you want it perfectly square, and then simply a line that separates the wall from the tabletop. So first thing I'm going to do is my terracotta pot. I'm going to kind of make it off center a little bit. If you want yours in the center, that's perfect. I'm going to do kind of a little oval bottom or oval sides with a little flat bottom. And then I'm going to create a line for the table. Can you guys see that? Let me hold that up. Actually, let me do it a little bit. Let me actually break that chalk. Let me do it a little bit darker so you guys can see it. You know what? I might have to use the purple. The white chalk stick is not working. Oh yeah, that's way better. So just a really simple shape and then the line that separates the wall from the table. I'm not going to do the wallpaper. So now I'm going to create the plant. And don't look at it as a complicated plant with all that layered, leaves and texture. each one is a heart. So I know I want a few dominant ones. So kind of up here, I'm going to simply draw a heart with a long bottom. And then I'm going to move over here, another one that's kind of the focus. Just a simple heart. Everyone can draw one. I'm going to put a leaf right here, a little bit smaller. I'm going to sneak one kind of right here, overlapping the pot. I'll make him a little bit skinnier, maybe over here. And you guys turn your canvas if that's an easier way. So this one, I'm going to do really long and skinny. And then let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 2 more. I'm going to do one up here that's super skinny. And then I might do one more that shoots off over here. I'm going to kind of overlap the pot. So that is great placement for all of the leaves within the plant. We're not going to draw the stems yet. We're just going to start with this. All right, so now we're going to start layering all of our color. So we're going to get the navy blue. We're going to put some of that on our palette. Always a little bit of wicker white. And for now, that's all we're going to do, because all we're going to do is our tabletop. Whenever you clean your brush in the water, I always tell everyone, make sure you dry it off on a paper towel, because a really wet brush is not good for this technique that we're doing tonight. So dry brush, I'm simply going to dip that in the navy blue, and I'm going to dry brush. I don't want to completely cover that terracotta. So I'm kind of just polishing or scrubbing color over that terracotta. Every now and then I'm going to pick up a little wicker white, but then back into the navy, go around any leaves that overlap, because you want to leave that terracotta base coat. Let me hold that up. I just want to make sure, oh, there you go, that you guys can see that I'm not completely covering that really pretty dark background. And I'm also not using any water, and I'm polishing random strokes going in every direction so that you get a really organic base coat. And always just a little bit of white. Some areas you can do a little bit darker, a little bit heavier on the navy. But just make sure that that terracotta color is not completely covered. And just a dry brush. What's really nice is in a lot of the areas, you get the texture of the canvas. Okay, so I've created a base coat for my tabletop. I'm going to clean that brush in the water. And now we're going to start immediately with the fun texture of the FolkArt terracotta paint. So using that same medium brush, it's a medium flat brush, this is a number 8, I'm going to put the FolkArt terracotta, that shale green, and a little bit of the Cavern Moss. And what we're going to do is we are going to base coat one leaf at a time. So I'm going to pick this one right here so you guys can see. And I am going to base coat that with the terracotta. But the great thing about the terracotta, and I think, let's see, I think you guys can see that. See how much texture it has? So you want a thicker coat. Because what we're going to do is we're going to create texture with our palette knife. Go back and forth into both colors and just base coat that leaf. And actually I'll do 3 at a time. You can do them all if you don't think they're going to dry. The dry time depends on the temperature of your house, the humidity in the air. If you are positive that they're not going to start drying, base coat all of them, but I'm just going to start with 3. I'm going to sneak up and do this one. And again, if you're more comfortable, turn your palette or turn your canvas, sorry. You can see I'm just filling our pattern. All right, then what we're going to do, which is the fun part, is you're going to get your palette knife and you're actually going to scratch into those leaves, removing, watch. So I'm going to go down the center. I'm creating that center vein in the leaf. And then I'm just going to scratch, create some fun texture. Let me hold that up. See how it creates that really nice edge? It reveals the underneath color. It's just a fun way to create some details. I'm going to create that center vein. And don't overthink them. Don't think that if that one has 3 stripes, that one has to have 3, spacing has to be exact. That's not the look that we're going for. We want it to be really natural, a center vein, and then just a few lines to create texture. But see how fun that is, getting the underneath color to come through? Now I'm going to use those same 2 terracotta colors or terracotta paints in the green and then the green gray, and base coat the rest of my leaves. You can see my edges. They don't have to follow your pattern exactly. If you realize, oh, I want him a little bit bigger, just go right over the chalk. That's why I love to use chalk, because it just kind of disappears into your paint. You don't have to remove it. You don't have to make sure that you cover it. Whereas if you did a pencil or a pen, you would have to make sure that everything was covered. Go back and forth in the 2 different FolkArt terracotta colors. But really allow it to create texture, and don't have it be just a flat base coat, because that's why we're using the terracotta, because it allows you to get all that texture. All right, same palette knife. I'm going to create that center vein on all of them. It's like old-fashioned, I think what they call it, wax art, where you would scratch the pattern in wax. It's kind of fun, that same feeling. So that's kind of the base of our leaves. So you can see the color through. And now while that dries a little bit, we are going to base coat our terracotta pot using Dusty Trail. So put a little bit of that on your palette. And I'm actually going to apply that with the palette knife. So that is the terracotta. I'm just going to scoop that up. I've got a lot on there. And I'm just going to almost like, now what is that? Oh, that was a little piece of dried paint. Sorry about that. Ignore the black. Almost like you're spreading butter or peanut butter on toast. You're just going to use that palette knife and allow the texture to build up. but you're just going to create a really nice textured base coat on your terracotta pot. And don't try to cover up all of that really pretty cinnamon. Where it peeks through and where it outlines your leaves is really part of the look that you want, because it just adds another bit of dimension to your painting. I absolutely love the FolkArt terracotta paint. The big trend was just upcycling vases and making them look like clay, but painting with it is such a fun second use for this paint line. So kind of look at it, see if you've got enough texture. I'm going to hold that up. See just the different layers. That'll dry just beautifully as your canvas dries. You can see I left a little bit of the base coat around the leaves. I left a little bit of separation between the blue and the terracotta. Okay, so that is our base coat. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use the blow dryer again, and we are going to make sure that that dries. You can see how quickly the terracotta dries, but you're going to make sure it's totally dry for the next step. Okay. So if you guys want to do this next step with chalk, if you want to do it with your brush, whatever is more comfortable for you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my plant inside my pot. So what I want to do is just make sure, see how, I forget what kind of plant this is, Stephen, I bet you know. But you want to not draw a straight line connecting your leaves like that. The leaves connect to the stem right here in the center of the heart. And you just want to really organically bring that into the center. So what I'll do is I'll do this one first. So if it connects right there, you know it's through the back, boop, boop, and into the pot. If this one connects right there, you can kind of view him as falling over, and you can come out of the center of that heart and bring him into the pot. This one kind of leans that way. So you know the stem comes from there. So maybe bring him in from the back. This guy right here, I'm going to bring up and over like he's falling out from the side. This one, I'm going to bring in that way. Just make sure you do it really loose. You don't want to have a bunch of straight lines. You want to have a little bit of movement in your plant. This one's way over here. So I'm going to connect it that way. There's no right or wrong. I just want to show that it's really loose and really organic. So I use the chalk for placement, but now what I'm going to do is my small brush. I'm going to use that same terracotta green. And I'm just going to create that stem. But let it be a little bit thicker. Let chunks of that terracotta so that your leaves match the texture of your stems.
Kirsten, you brought up what kind of plant it is. It kind of looks like a monstera to me.
Oh, there you go. I think you're right. I knew you would know, Stephen. Good job. So I'm just connecting, not with a really thin line, not with a perfect line, but with a little bit of texture because we're using that terracotta paint. Okay, so I've got all my stems. Add a little more texture if you see a spot that needs it. All right, now I'm going to get that medium flat brush. I think there's an 8, a 12, and a 10 in that Michael set. So whichever one you're most comfortable with. And while that dries a little bit, I'm going to dry off my brush on a dry paper towel. I'm going to get a little bit of that linen. And what we're going to do is we are going to base coat the wall behind the plant, but same technique as you used the blue. Don't completely cover the background. Make sure your brush is as dry as it can be on a paper towel. Don't add any water and really loose random strokes, all different directions. And move all around the canvas. The reason I do that is because then as the paint starts to wear out of the bristles, you get all of that different value rather than build up and work left to right. If you jump around, you don't create a pattern and you just get a really nice background. Now, when I outline my leaves, I want to leave, I don't want to go right up against my leaf because I don't want to eliminate. Let's see if I can hold that up. I don't want to eliminate that outline. The outline, that little bit of cinnamon coming through, is part of the look that we want. So we're covering up most of it, but we're definitely keeping some of it exposed. If you need a thinner brush for some of these thin areas, switch to whichever brush you're most comfortable with. I love layering the colors. And if you worked on a white canvas, you would not be able to get any of this layered look because you'd have to build that back in and it would just be so much harder working on white and then adding it in. Now we don't have to add it in at all. It's the beginning of our painting, so it's really easy. I'm just going to stay up on that chisel edge, which is the very tip of the brush, to get into these thin little areas. Just a little bit right there. Little bit right there. I like the ivory because I know I'm going to go back in and add that beautiful bright pink. So I'm having the larger sections. That's a really big area, maybe that. A little bit more solid, but not completely solid because I love the texture of the canvas coming through. All right, I think that might be leaving a little bit of the color between the blue, the wall, and the table. I think that might be all I'm going to add. Let me hold that up so you guys can see. I got to be still. How the outline or that cinnamon color comes through, it just adds layers and dimension to your painting. Okay. So kind of eyeball it, see if you've got some areas that you want a little bit more solid. I think I've got it. All righty. So now you want to hit it with the blow dryer again. We're just going to get kind of that ivory background a little bit dry. Okay, so now really, if that's really kind of finished, if you like it that way, that is a really great painting. So you can stop there, but we are going to continue and do some more fun things. All right, so I'm going to get a little bit of the Thicket, which is regular FolkArt matte acrylic. Make sure you've still got some of the terracotta green on your palette. If not, add a little bit, and a little bit more of the terracotta Cavern Moss. So just make sure you have a little bit of that on your palette. So now what's kind of fun is we're using our base coat or our painted leaf as our pattern. And we're going to go in and just have fun with it. Don't do exactly what I'm doing. If you want to skip the dark green, if you want to just do the dots, whatever you want to do. But what we're really doing is taking each individual leaf. So we'll start with this one, and we're just kind of creatively adding a little bit of color to him. So I'm going to take a little bit of the Thicket. Again, no water. This is a number 6 flat brush. And these sections, I'm just going to dry brush some dark green on. I'm not going to cover up the terracotta exactly. I'm definitely not going to cover up where we scratched and the terracotta is exposed. Using that same brush, I might add just some dots or some texture to that one. I might add a few to that. Be creative. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of the terracotta, add it to the Thicket, because what that will do is we'll create a paint with some texture or some grit. And I'm going to maybe paint that little section. Again, I'm using the base coat as a pattern. So I'm not covering up those terracotta veins in the leaf. And I'm just going back with all the different paints, whether it be the plain Thicket, whether it's the Thicket mixed with the terracotta to create texture, and just embellishing or adding really fun, loose details to those leaves. So I kind of picked that one first. I did him. Now I'm going to jump to this one. And I think I'm going to do the whole left side with this Thicket, just to bring that really pretty dark green more into the composition. But I'm not covering up anything. I'm keeping the terracotta, I'm keeping the ivory, I'm keeping that base coat that is that real pretty slate green. Not going into water at all. Again, this technique, really no water unless you're drying, unless you're cleaning your brush. I'm going to go into that terracotta. I'm gonna make that just a little more texture. I'm gonna take a little bit of that dark green thicket, and I'm just gonna add some dark green to that particular stem. I'm gonna hold it up so you guys can see it is not perfect painting. It is really organic. It's really kind of abstract. We're just creating texture, which has given us that really fun look. I'm gonna skip to this one now. And I just love the dark green, so I might do almost all of the sections. If you get too much buildup on your brush, just wipe it on the paper towel. Don't go into the water. I'm dry brushing that green so that that underneath color shows through. I'm going to go over the stem, but not completely covering it, because that creates almost a highlight or a texture. Here, I'm going to do more of a stripe. I'll do that one and then skip and do every other. Add a little dark green there. I want more texture in that terracotta paint, so I'm going to add that to those two little elements of the leaf. A little bit of the thicket to create a shadow on the stem that connects it. And I love the little dots. So I'm going to add that just to those two sections. You want each leaf to be totally different and have a personality of its own. And all I'm doing really is going back and forth in the thicket and then the two different terracotta greens and grays. I'm going to divide this leaf, adding that dark green to every little section on the left. Adding some texture with the terracotta. The terracotta is great because if you want a lot of texture, you can put it on really heavy. Or if you want just a little bit of texture, you can brush it on like a traditional acrylic paint. I'm going to sneak over to this guy. This is the mixture of terracotta with the thicket. And then I'll do just the thicket because that dark green is so beautiful. And I'm just going to keep adding a little bit of pattern, a little bit of texture until all of my leaves are exactly the way I want them. This would be, when you're all done, this would be a really good Valentine's present. Because look, I would love it if someone gave me this because they're little hearts. The little plant is shaped just like a little heart. So someone out there would love this. Let's see, maybe a few dark. And they're not perfect dots. They're not spaced out exactly the same. Really loose, really abstract. That might be exactly enough. Let's see. Now, if you want a little bit of white, clean that same brush off, not in water, but just on the paper towel. And I'm just going to dip into that wicker white that I've still got on my palette. And every now and then, not a lot of spots, but I'm going to do just the littlest, almost like a little highlight. I'm not going to do it on all of them. Maybe a little bit over here. I love the white on the dark green. Maybe that's it. Oh, I love it. Okay, so now your base coat should be dry for your wallpaper. Your pot should be dry. Really everything except for the details in your leaves should be dry, which we're done painting those, so you don't have to worry about doing that with the blow dryer. So take your medium flat brush and dry or clean that in the water. And then dry that off on your paper towel. And we're going to do a few things. We're going to have that ready for our wallpaper, but we're also going to use that same palette knife that we used before. And we're going to add some texture onto the blue tabletop and around our pot. So I'm picking up, it's a really pretty gray green. It's called Cavern Moss. And if you need more of it, squeeze more onto your palette. And you're just going to scoop that up on the side of your palette knife. And same technique that we base coated our pot, almost like you're spreading peanut butter. I'm going to just kind of create some texture down the side of my canvas, not covering up the navy at all, but allowing all of that to layer. And then I'm going to create a little highlight where the pot would sit. So I've loaded that same terracotta gray green. And I'm just going to run that palette knife under the pot and then just drag down, but just a little. And you want to be really light-handed. You don't want to mash down super hard. Because if you mash down super hard, you get a really straight line that's solid. And if you have really light texture on your canvas, all those colors underneath continue to show through. And that's exactly what you want. If you want a little texture on your stems, you can load just the side of your palette knife and just kind of run that, not on all of them, but just on a few areas to kind of bring that look to the stems of the little plant. And I just noticed him. He's the only one that doesn't have any dots, and I want him to have dots. So I'm just going in that wicker white and just going to add a few, just because I love how that looks like a little highlight. Okay, so you've got lots of texture. I'm going to take my large or my medium brush that I dried off on the paper towel, and I'm going to dip that in the wicker white and then remove a lot of it. So I've dipped in the wicker white and then I'm removing a lot of it. And the lightest texture, the lightest pressure, I'm just going to barely polish over some areas of my clay pot. And what that does is it'll just kind of allow paint to lay on the textured areas that you've created with the palette knife. And that's just giving your pot a little bit of texture. Very, very little paint. Remember, you go into the wicker white and then remove it all. And you're just dry brushing over that terracotta pot. And see where it just touches where the palette knife and the terracotta paint created that texture. It just barely skims over that, giving you that really pretty clay look. Okay, this could also be done if you don't want to add pink or you don't want the modern pop of the wallpaper. This is absolutely perfect. I kind of wish I was going to leave mine, but I'm not. I'm going to do the wallpaper. Okay, so clean that flat brush. I'm using a number 8. No, I'm not. I'm using a number 10. Making sure that it's dry. And then that beautiful bright pink. And this is kind of fun and modern. Everything seems to be having a pop of color now. That's kind of a really popular trend. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so this is fun. This is loose. It's organic. We want our wallpaper to be the same. So we don't want perfectly straight lines. We don't want our patterns to be exactly the same. So we're just going to go into that pink. And if you want to do it with just the chisel edge at first to kind of get placement, that's a great way to start. So I'm just going to do a straight line, top to bottom, but skipping over, obviously, the design elements of the leaf. And I'm barely going to skim just to start my placement. You can see that he's a little crooked. So I'm going to straighten him out, knowing that he's going to get thicker. So that's the beginning of my wallpaper. So now that I like it, I'm going to make it a little bit thicker using the entire flat edge. But same thing, I'm leaving that space between the design elements. I'm not going right up to it. Then I'm going to do a thin line with the chisel edge. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to start in my biggest area. So that's kind of there or there. And I'm just going to do, it's kind of a comma stroke, but I'm just using that chisel edge and creating a small stroke. Then I'm going to do 2 on the bottom. And then I know there's kind of one behind there. So I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to just continue all the way up. But again, it doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be perfect, the spacing. You're just creating texture. I know right there, part of it is covered with the leaf. So I'm going to just do it there and there. I'm going to do a second coat over that, not to make it solid. I still want that linen or light color to show through, but just to make it a little bit brighter. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side, the thin line first. And then the thick. And then you're just going to continue that. If you get too much paint on your brush, just put it on the paper towel, not in water. And then I'm going to leave a good amount of space. I always use my fingers to measure, so maybe a finger's width. And I'm going to do that light line first, just for placement. And then I'm going to make him a little bit thicker. Then using the chisel edge. And then I'm going to do that same little pattern, which this will be easier because there's no leaf in the way. Make that a little brighter. Same thing, I'm going to kind of judge about a finger's width. So that will stay ivory. And then a thin line. Just the thought of pattern back there makes it a really fun layout. And I do love the pink with the house plant. Then a thin line. And then knowing he will come down here. So I don't want to make it not match, but I also don't want to mess up the composition. So I'm just putting just enough pink to register as a pattern. Like same with here. I know it's down there, but I don't want to mess up the movement in that. So I'm just going to add just enough pink so that the eye sees it as a pattern. Again, I'm using my finger to measure. Thick line first. Kind of just draw a line with your finger and see if there's any spots on that ivory or linen color. And just fill that in. Now I know I need that pattern, but don't overthink it and don't worry that it has to be exactly in the same place. You just want kind of the idea of it in the open space where it would lay. And then the thin line. Oh, we're almost done. And then the thick line. And then I'll kind of draw that invisible line. Oh, and no, the wallpaper would kind of sneak through right there. And then measure it with my finger. And it would just end with a little touch of pink. Oh, let's see. I don't think I missed a spot. Kind of use your finger to just see if you've missed anything. If you want a little bit brighter pink, I think I want a little bit brighter right there. I love the pink with the green. And remember, you're giving this for Valentine's Day. So I think that's everything. We've got all that great texture. We've got the outline from painting on a dark base coat. We've got a really neat palette knife kind of technique by scratching away the textured paint of the FolkArt Terra Cotta. So a really fun composition. That's some new techniques, something that I hope was super fun. And now you guys have a finished canvas. And once that's dry, you can sign it and give it for Valentine's Day. So does anyone have any questions now that we're done?
I don't think we have any as of right now, but if there's any last minute ones, let us know.
Yeah.
Kirsten, you want to tell them again where they can share their work one more time?
Yep. So our favorite thing tomorrow or tonight is to see everyone's creations. So if you guys, we would love it if you share them on #MakeItWithMichaels and also #PlaidCrafts. We'd love to see your paintings and see what you guys created with us. So I hope you guys had a great class. I hope you enjoy your kind of fun Valentine's inspired houseplant. And we hope to see you guys next time when we create a painting with Make It With Michaels. So thanks everyone for joining us. Bye.